Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the transatlantic DH-5500SA66-USP. This is a spring hinge is what it is. There's no tension set on this, so this is what it's going to look like when it comes to you out of the box. There's no tension. That's normal. This hinge may be familiar to you if you live in New York. You have seen hinges like this, guaranteed, even Chicago. But New York, all the older hotels, they're full of hinges that look like these. The difference between those and this is it's not this one. It's the original bomber hinge. This is a clone or a copy, is what it is. So let's start off with some dimensional properties, and we're going to talk at length about what it is and, more importantly, what it's not. This is what they call a 6x6. I don't know where they get 6x6, but it's a 6-inch tall leaf is what that is. Its overall width is about 4 5/8. Let me measure that. As accurately as I can. Yeah, I'd say about 4 5/8 would be an overall width of the hinge. The other important thing to know is the leaf thickness. I'll tell you that. .103 thick. The other important thing to know is where are the screws located. Transatlantic does not provide a template for this, so here's your information. Top of the leaf to the first hole looks like it's about about a ½ inch. To the second hole looks like it's about 1 7/16 inches. To the middle hole looks like it's about 3 inch. Coming down to the fourth hole looks like it's about 4 1/2. To the fifth hole looks like it's about 5 3/8. From the edge of the leaf this will be somewhat of an approximation. Looks like it's about 3/8, just shy on that. And then to the second hole looks like it's about 13/16. So that's the dimensional properties of what this hinge is. It is made of steel. Okay, it is 1.87 pound per each, or thereabouts, is the weight of it, and it is in a gray finish. I would not call this prime coat. This may be an enamel. They don't indicate what this is, although it may be powder coated, but it's awfully. It feels like enamel as far as I'm concerned. If you're going to paint this, I would suggest sanding this down, priming it, and then putting a paint over it. Let's talk about what this hinge is used for, and we're going to talk about what it's not to be used for. Let's do that now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So this is a hinge that's going to be used to close doors, and several decades ago, many decades ago, pre-mid-20th century, your spring hinges looked not unlike this, is the bottom line. They are not the much smaller, clean and sleek hinges that would fit into a 4 1/2 inch or a 4 inch or a 3 1/2 inch pocket mortised in the edge of the door. It would have been large leaf hinges like this, even though historically hinges that look just like this are available in a templated pattern for the leaf as well. That's a later evolution of the hinge. Historically, the size of this hinge could be larger, and it could certainly be smaller. This is what would be called full mortise. When you bring the leaves together, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and the frame, but you could have seen a variety of spring hinges like this that could have been half surface as well. no doubt. So where people are going to use these is just when you've got an older door, older because it was prepped for an older style of hinge like this, that needs to be self-closing. That's the bottom line. That's where you're going to use this. It's certainly made of steel, and it's going to be used in those applications. An older entry door, maybe in a multi-unit apartment building, door just needs to close. Also, what you're going to get in the package is going to be machine screws, should you have a steel frame, and then wood screws as well. Okay. You're also going to get your tension rod and a couple of tension pins. Let's talk about how you set the tension on this. So setting the tension on this is really easy. There's not much to say. But in the absence of any published documentation, it would be a good idea to at least mention some guidelines. When the tension collar, this collar here with the holes in it, you'll notice there's not one here. When that's towards the top of the door, you'll insert this tension rod and you'll turn that collar clockwise. And as you do, you'll reveal new additional holes. It's into one of those new additional holes that you will insert the tension pin and then release tension on the tension collar. Now, I've got some tension built on this. It's only one hole, so I can still peel it open. It's definitely under tension. We don't just want to have that snap closed. So now that's under tension. You continue to adjust the tension on the hinge collar according to suit the needs of the opening. If your door is going to go to 90 degrees, 90 degree open, you really shouldn't exceed, in my opinion, probably 4, maybe 5 holes of tension set. I'm saying 4 or 5, and that's because I don't know. I'm using my experience. If you hear any creaking when the door is opening, that would tell me that that torsion spring inside of the barrel of the hinge is contorting. You're definitely going to want to back it off. If your door doesn't close as a result of how much stored energy is in that spring, add another spring hinge to get it closed. If your door goes past 90, definitely not 5, probably not more than 4. That's my guideline. I have nothing to tell me that that's what you would want to do. Set the least amount of tension on these as possible. Why? This is compared to the original, this is an extreme low quality clone or copy of it. Don't put it under duress. Don't ask it to do more than it's supposed to do. So keep that tension set down and increase it only when you have to, and then add another hinge. You'll set the tension on the top hinge first. That top hinge is doing the job of actually closing the door. Your middle and or bottom hinge, you can adjust tension on that as well, but the top hinge is really the one that's doing the majority of the work. But I would recommend having 2 or 3 hinges on the door depending on the size, because the amount of stored energy in the spring hinge as the door gets to the very final, let's say 10 degree of close, there's not a lot of stored energy left in the spring, but when you have more springs, you've got more stored energy at that critical last 10 degree where the door has to have overcome all of the air pressure resistance that it's hit just static, but also any air pressure that's coming out through the opening as it's closing, plus also the latch bolt hitting the strike lip and overcoming that friction, etc. Also, if the door is not true plumb level and square, the spring hinge is fighting all of that. Maybe the door is ill fit in the opening to begin with. I said door closer. The spring hinge is fighting that as well. Now, where not to use this? Let's talk about that now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Now, folks, compare these to the original bomber equipment, and that's okay to do because you do need a spring hinge for something, and bomber is no longer in business, at least at the time of this video they're not. This can be compared against the Bomber 4010, and that's okay because it is in essence a very similar hinge, if not identical to it. The Bomber template does tell us that that leaf thickness is 0.105, so this is going to be good. And then those locations for the holes, this appears to be a copy of that Bomber 4010. However, the Bomber 4010 is not, and bear with me one moment. The Bomber 4010 is not the Bomber, I believe 40. Let's look. Yeah, the Bomber 4010 is not the 4040. The difference is the 4040 is UL listed and was UL labeled. Nowhere on this hinge are you going to find anywhere where there's a UL stamp. Nowhere. And that's because it's not permissible for use on fire doors. Well, you might say to yourself, well, wait a minute. Fire doors just have to be, well, they have to be three things: self-closing, self-latching, and free swinging. This gets the door closed and latched. I should be good. Turns out that's not the case. And it's not the case because spring hinges are treated very differently in NFPA 80 than our full mortise, steel-based, ball-bearing hinges. The governing document that most surely your local building code references specifically calls out requirements for spring hinges. Let's switch to the screen view and let's look at all of our supporting documentation, including NFPA 80, but the moral of that story is where you wouldn't use it is on a fire door. Not that there would be any problem with this doing the job, getting the door closed and latched in a fire. The reason it's not permissible is because it's never been tested. They don't know that, it's not known that it would work. Let's say that you've got a door held open with an electromag and the fire panel opens the circuit, the door goes to close, but this has failed because the temperature around the opening has already gotten, let's just say, above what would be safe for any human presence. It's never been tested. It might work just fine. It might work 1,000 times over. With this nylon in here, though, it tells me that it probably would be, you would probably want to be suspect of it actually working. So, summary, if it's a fire door, this is not permissible. Let's show you why and some other stuff right now. Okay, here's the hinge we are looking at. This is like a factory stock image that's here and is not the hinge itself, but let's take a look at some images that I have down below this video. That's the box with its label. That's the hinge with its screw package, and you'd only get enough screws for what the hinge needs, but that's everything that would come out of the entire box. They are priced and sold. Yeah, price given per pair of hinges. So they're priced and sold for 2 hinges. When you buy one, you're going to get a box with 2 hinges in it. That's what that hinge looks like. It's a better image than theirs. Showing what the hinge looks like when it's open. That swag, that's there, the bend, that's what tells us. Doesn't necessarily tell the casual observer that it's full mortise, but that bend on the hinge leaf would tell us that it's full mortise. Showing a close-up of the what I believe to be an enamel paint. And then we have one more round of images. That's the back side of the hinge. Tension pins, tension rod, fasteners, wood, machine, tension rod, and your 2 tension pins. Each hinge gets 1 tension pin. Okay, description is here. Single acting spring hinge, approved by NYC Housing, absolutely. Full mortise, usable on both metal and wood doors. Button tips, that's just the rounded nature of the cap that's on the end of the hinge. Made of steel, prime coated, 2 in a box. Instructions, I did not see those before. Okay, these are definitely not instructions. This is a section out of the original Transatlantic catalog that certainly goes back to the 1980s. What you're seeing here is the same catalog you would have flipped through if you were working with Transatlantic, and in my experience, the 80s and the 90s. I don't have a consolidated single document of that original version when Transatlantic was just Transatlantic, a Philadelphia company. Very good, by the way. Our customer service rep's name there was Sandy, and she was really helpful. And the guys who own Transatlantic were bringing material in from overseas and had a great name for themselves. Transatlantic, we would call it Taco. If someone says Taco, They want a taco closer. It's transatlantic. That's what that means. So, instructions. Now, I had mentioned NFPA 80, and I'm going to show you where that reference is just so that you have it, or at least if you need to supply it to someone. NFPA 80. I happen to know that the section regarding spring hinges is in Chapter 6. Yeah, okay, here's Chapter 6. I know it's there because I refer to it often, reasonably often. This table, builder's hardware, hinges, spring hinges, and pivots. Let's see. Hinges and pivots. Okay. Hinges, spring hinges, continuous hinges, and pivots shall be as specified in individual door and hardware's manufactured published listings. Okay. Here's something really important. This is for fire doors now. Where spring hinges are used, you must use at least 2. That's important. If you see one spring hinge, which you won't on a fire door, you don't have a fire door. Ah, here it is. 6.4.3.1.2.2. Spring hinges shall be labeled and shall meet the requirements of ANSI A156.17. So, shall be, the word shall means must. It's not a suggestion, it's a mandatory requirement. The word should is a suggestion, but shall is mandatory. Shall be labeled. Shall be labeled. And I also doubt that Transatlantic's hinge is A156.17 certified. So it beats it on certainly one count and probably both. But that's where you don't use this hinge. NFPA 80 is a tremendous document. If you ever need to refer to the source material, the industry standard that your local building code references, this would be it. The year of edition that your local code is using would be called out as well. All right, let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So I'm a fan of Transatlantic material, and always was, in the sense that they always made a really good... their door closer, we stocked. Their panic device, their ED-501. We stocked that all the time. That was our go-to exit device. Very inexpensive, and over decades I only had one fail, and it wasn't the exit device's fault. The customer called angry, bordering livid, that the panic device was no good, and the language is a bit more colorful than that. Coincidentally, I lived about a mile away from the job site, so I drove there on a Saturday, and he was so angry he didn't want to see me. So I go through the restaurant, it's a restaurant, back, and I said to some guy standing there who is taking his large lead from a welder and rolling it back on his cart, I said, after I looked at the exit device and said, "Did you weld that to the door?" He's like, "Oh yes." Easy, easy, no screw. Okay. What the client did was someone told the guy to weld the panic device to the door, or he did it on his own accord, melted the spring that is in there, and the latch just died. Wasn't much else to say at that point. He didn't want to hear about the fact that it was going to be another exit device, but that's the bottom line. So the ED-501 has an excellent record as far as I'm concerned. Transatlantic was bought by the person who owned Global, and now Imperial USA owns those two trademark names or brand names. Lots of this and that. There's lots of people to buy imported hardware from, but Transatlantic historically had always been a very good name in the import builders hardware, especially especially exit devices and their door closers. Their locks, their hinges, good. I didn't care for the locks, difficult to assemble and disassemble. But if you recall that catalog section that we had scrolled through, that catalog was about, 7/8 thick. 180 pages worth of imported builders hardware. But what really separates an importer from every other importer is that customer service, and Transatlantic was always superior in that regard. Anyway, if you have any questions on this Transatlantic DH for door hinge 5500 SA66 USP or any other Transatlantic global imperial product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.